has a mindset where it punches below its weight. We have to punch not above our weight. We have to punch not below our weight. We have to increase our weight and punch the post.
ये हमारा सिद्धांत है, हम घर में घुस के मारेंगे.
You know, victims of terrorism do not sit together with perpetrators of terrorism to discuss terrorism.
Namaskar, Jai Hind, Jai Bharat, and welcome to Dev Talks. This is Aadi, and I have with me Major General Prabdeep Singh. जो आज we will talk about a lot of very interesting things. आज सबसे पहला सवाल मैं सर से पूछने वाला हूँ. Firstly, sir, नमस्कार. Thank you so much. Nice to have you back on the show.
Namaskar, Aadi. Good to be back. Always a pleasure.
Sir, simple question to begin with, sir. Has Trump taken too much of a risk? क्योंकि इतने सारे फ्रंट एक साथ, यहाँ पे भी ये कर, वहां पे भी वो कर, इधर पे भी ये कर, उधर पे भी वो कर. One can see the pressure coming up now, and one can see them kind of not being able to meet up with the expectations.
Well, I think, I would not say that he's taken on too much more than what he can chew. It is just that when he was in the electioneering process and, campaigning, that is the time he had to make certain amount of statements and kind of commitments to the voters and to his country, and also tell the world that he's the man who can bring about peace in the world. And as is evident, he is today a man in a hurry because he had made so many promises over a period of time. And the 4 years gap in between the last presidency and today, the present one, in between Biden's presidency, this gentleman was preparing as to what he wanted to achieve. So he had his agenda fixed. Now the point remains, Ukraine happened in between during Joe Biden's time. And as he has always maintained, it would not have happened had he been in the chair. Well, that's the past. But today, the fact of the matter is, he had promised that even before he would assume the presidency, he would bring about peace in Ukraine, and then, of course, in the world as such, as also what's happening in Israel, and he would bring about peace there. Well, 2 months have passed. We still haven't seen the kind of peace that should actually have taken place as promised on ground. But the fact remains that he has been, and his pointsmen, they have been shuttling between whether it is Ukraine or whether it is Israel, and now he's opened up the Iran issue that is coming about. There are a lot of negotiations which are taking place behind the scenes, behind the curtains, even of course what is available on media. His own trust in himself, or his confidence in himself on one-to-one negotiations, that is kind of now coming up, that it hasn't been able to achieve. He hasn't been able to achieve what he thought he would be able to achieve. I mean, he's made talks to President Putin twice. He's been meeting up with Zelensky. He's been speaking to Zelensky. On the other side, Prime Minister Netanyahu and all that. But has he been able to very confidently say that he is reaching agreements, reaching conclusions? No, nothing is happening. The ceasefire talks, the ceasefire is not there on ground on both sides. I mean, temporary ceasefires are meaningless. They in fact, give space to each fighting force to rest and recoup. And once the ceasefire gets broken, the intensity of the battle is much higher because that break has been, given. So, in a way, yes, and in a way, no, because these things take time. A politician's mind and a diplomat's mind. Diplomacy is not something which, which is not, it's not a business deal, which unfortunately President Trump, being a businessman, thinks it's either you're here or there and, you throw money. It doesn't work like that. Diplomacy is an art, and seasoned and, career bureaucrats, diplomats, they are the ones who know how to go about it. So perhaps the man in a hurry hasn't been able to convince the world that yes, he can do something while he's trying. That's what I can put it as. Let's see as to what happens. Both, whether it is, I would say not both, whether it is Ukraine, whether it is Israel, Gaza, or now what they're talking about, talking with the Iranians. So let's see as to what happens.
So let's start with Ukraine. Effort is there. Putin is kind of positive, but Zelensky and Europe is, especially Zelensky, uska body language, his statements have been very, very negative. Abhi bhi.
Dekho, the whole root cause of the whole problem is Zelensky, because he has been made, it's gotten into his head, if I may just put it this way bluntly. He's the one kind of dictating terms to Europe. You must put put more sanctions onto Russia, put pressure on Russia. I mean, come on, man. And I'm quite amused by the European leaders, because they are the ones kind of playing up to his game. I think he's the biggest con artist on this planet as of now. He's led his entire country to destruction. He's got his men killed. He hasn't been able to achieve anything, and he's been firing his generals left and right. The conscription part of it. I mean, I'm sure that the Ukrainians themselves, who are living in Ukraine, are not happy as to what is happening, and unfortunately, fueling the fire are European leaders. Right now, I'm going to make a statement, and I don't know whether it is going to be. I think it's going to come true. The NATO per se, without the US and Canada, is all European, right? Rest of it is all European. You take out the United States, Canada is irrelevant. NATO ceases to exist. It becomes a coalition of the willing, as they are talking about, amongst the European countries. The moment that happens, Article 5 vanishes. You getting what I'm trying to say? The moment the NATO charter gets dissolved because NATO ceases to exist, Article 5 is vanishes into oblivion, and now they have an excuse to intervene. And somehow the Europeans are very keen that this continue to simmer and they will continue to supply weapons, and they will want to put troops on ground, whether it's the Brits or the French. They want to put troops on ground, boots on ground. They want it to continue. They are willing to supply all the weapons without the Americans. So this war is not going to end. And mark my words, it will be courtesy of the Europeans and Zelensky in person. President Putin, on the other hand, is a very seasoned, politician. He's been in the KGB. He's been what? I mean, he's seasoned. He knows the game. He knows what the game is, and the game actually extends beyond Ukraine. And I'm going to again come to my favorite. It goes to the Arctic. It goes to the Arctic. Yeah. If Greenland is coming about in the game, if you're talking Greenland, if Finland and Sweden have to join, It was all because of all this. Why? Because the dominance of the Russians in that particular region is much, much. I mean, they are the ones who rule the entire. I mean, the landmass, 50% of the landmass is with Russia, even more, about 400 odd bases. So that's another angle I'm trying to just give it to you. This war is not going to end. The Europeans will not let it happen. They will keep fueling it. They will keep making statements. They will keep pumping in money. They will keep this thing. They will ramp up their own production. And what is the overall aim? To weaken Russia so that it doesn't push further. And Russia has no intentions. That's what I gather. I mean, whatever is the past history, and I'm not talking about that, but Russia wanted a kind of a buffer zone between that, and they wanted Ukraine to be neutral. That didn't work out. So it's not going to finish. These temporary ceasefires have no meaning, and the Russians, they very much understand this. And what are you seeking temporary ceasefires for? For the infrastructure, for the energy infrastructure. अरे बाप मेरे मेरा मेरा I'm on my knees. मेरे को मत मारो, इतना मत मारो. Whether it is Russia can still survive, but the Ukrainians can't, right? So because they've been hit so badly, because the intelligence has stopped coming in from the Americans, so they want a ceasefire to regroup, to send in more arms, so send in more troops, more ammunition, everything. So the Russians understand that they will find an excuse here and there not to stall the offensives that they are carrying on, and they have to get rid of each and every Ukrainian which is in Kursk, and that's what what I feel. Yeah.
So the interesting thing, which is also here, is that Russia and USA, the relationship is kind of moving forward at quite a fast pace, right? And do you see a situation where both these guys say, "ठीक है यार, तुमको जो करना है करो. We are moving forward. We are opening up everything. Russia is getting all the dollars, everything. Banks are open. We are switching off the sanctions because they are agreeing with us. If you guys are the problem, then you can keep fighting." So how do you see that situation coming up?
You see why? That situation is coming about why? That's what we've got to see. The main, as far as I may say, enemy number one, quote unquote, enemy number one is China. As far as the Americans are concerned, they don't view China's rise very favorably, and a combined Russia and China combined is a very, very dangerous combination. So we all understand the Americans have to get close to Russia, have to, start cooperating with Russia and draw Russia away from China. It's plain and simple. And that's the whole game. Because the moment the two of them really, as of today, while China may be supporting Russia, but it hasn't supported, on the extent that we thought that China may support Russia. On the contrary, it's North Korea which has, sent troops and sent some ammunition, etc. But the Chinese have not. They have maintained a very respectable distance as far as the Ukraine war is concerned and wanted to play the peace card instead. But to draw Russia away from China, the Americans need to be close to Russia. And that is how the diplomatic, they're trying to revive diplomatic ties and start of trade, etc. And they will let it as okay. Yeah, you keep dealing with these guys. They don't want to mend their ways. Can you deal with them? He says, yeah, don't worry, I'll deal with them. But I want my territories. I'll take my territories. Then I will see. So this kind of an arrangement or understanding perhaps would come about.
The biggest another thing which I see before we shift over to the other side is also the factor that this whole structure which is sitting there, Europe mein, and the way every week they're having these meetings and this and that and everything. And America has picked up that entire thing from Europe and moved it to the Middle East. with Saudi Arabia. This tells me
Yeah.
something. America needs an ally, right? They need a written ally, a lackey sort of a situation from a group of countries in a particular region. If Russia is out of the threat, and if India is not becoming the ally, is West Asia now going to be the ally from Israel to Saudi Arabia? Complete dominance of America, पूरी अलायंस साइन सून कर कुरा के सब कुछ सेट करके जो यूरोप पहले करता था, क्या will it shift to the Middle East now?
No, you see, the Americans already have a major hold as far as Middle East is concerned.
No, but they need to settle out this Iran and Israel and all this
Yeah,
business, right?
so the only you see the only defiant country, so to say, is Iran as of now in America's views, and they feel that the root cause of all problems today are the Iranians, whether it is the Hezbollah or whether it's the Houthis and whatever is happening in Syria and all these places. So as far as dealing with Iran is concerned, in any case, Iran also is not a very the Shia-Sunni divide exists as far as the Middle East is concerned also. So that card has to be the gap. The gap has to be narrowed, and Iran has to be subdued either militarily or diplomatically and brought into the mainstream as a non-existent threat in that region. तुम बातों से मान लो, नहीं तो हम दूसरा तरीका अपनाएंगे. And that is the kind of threat. Don't go nuclear. We don't want you to go nuclear. We want you to open up all your locations for scrutiny, which they did earlier. Remember that. I mean, that it's not that the Iranians are not denied, but it was always believed that all the facilities were not shown. And the Iranians are very confident that you don't mess up with us. The statement of the Ayatollah is that if you threaten us, if Iran is threatened, you will get very hard slaps. So it's both ways. The American threat, whether it manifests or it doesn't manifest on ground, but the Iranians are very much quite well prepared, apparently, confident enough to deal with the situation. So a kind of a stalemate situation will arise where they'll say, okay, fine, we'll not mess with you, you don't mess with us, we'll mind our business, and you mind your own, and let's be friends. So there will be about a peace in the Middle East. And as far as the other countries are concerned, whether it's Saudi Arabia, whether it's Qatar, whether it is Bahrain, whether it is other countries around the UAE, the fact of the matter remains there are American bases, American troops on ground. A major Air Force base in Qatar, you're aware.
Yeah, that's what I was asking, that, if there is a possibility that European thing shifts this way, then the European problem which they have with regards to bad demography, no economy, the leftist hold, they won't have to deal with it anymore.
So Europe, they leave Europe to their own devices.
Yeah.
And focus here. And Middle East, in any case, you see, the whole thing is energy, right? The whole thing is oil. You're supporting China. Stop supporting China as far as oil is concerned. Stop dealing with China. Period. The moment you're in Middle East, you also have a hold on Africa. I mean, you're after all, you're on Somalia, all that.
The geopolitics calls for it, because Indian Ocean is, if it's going to be the center of the game, then you need to be still around. So Balochistan is critical, Saudi is critical, Iran is critical. This entire region is extremely critical. And उसके बाद अगर अफ्रीका में जाना है तो फिर तो
अगर आपको अफ्रीका में भी dominate करना है, and you have to, today Africa is getting dominated by the Chinese and the Russians, right?
Yeah.
Nobody talks America there in Africa. So if you want to have a hold and you want to be the monitor of the whole situation, and you want to have you want to be the guy who's the boss around, in those straits, or I mean, then you've got to be present there, right? And you can only be present if the host countries welcome you. They will only welcome you when there is trade, when there is security being provided by you, when there is some faida, they are going to gain something out of it. So that's the I think that's a compulsion for the Americans to be present there. It's a compulsion for the Americans, not so much because of the oil part of it, but to curtail China's rise, to curtail China's prominence in those areas. And China is playing a major role, you know that, in Africa, and anti-piracy and things like that. They've also contributed. The ships, they keep coming on uh, and going back, and they keep traveling back and forth. So China is a issue there. And उसके लिए Middle East को control करके रखना है. They want it trouble free. When it comes to Israel, they don't. Israel is their prodigy. They don't want Israel to be fingered at all. So, as we are all aware, before, I mean, there was a lot of reproach, activity which was, they were getting together. They started, Israelis and the Saudis were talking, and everybody thinks that things are looking good till October the 7th. And this was derailed, whichever way somebody triggered it, and derailed the entire bonhomie that was coming about, or the peace that was coming about in Middle East and West Asia.
Mm-hmm. So this podcast, that podcast I sent you with regards, I mean, not with regards, Steve Witkoff talking to Tucker Carlson. I think pretty insightful. The guy seemed like a very humble person, very enamored by Trump and stuff. But one big glaring thing that came out from there is that America kind of understands where Israel is coming from, and they are going to allow Israel to do what they're doing in Gaza right now.
Right now, yes.
And dusra cheez, which was shocking to me, and I sent this little screenshot to you as well, that the Egyptians might be open to taking some amount of Gazan population and settling them in the Sinai. Now, this was a shock, because Egyptians had said a flat no. Now, what happened here, sir?
Now, this is what, when we talk, if you make a statement over media, it's a different story. When you sit down and talk, I'm sure there was there was a team which was there in Egypt talking to the Egyptians. I'm sure there is a team in Jordan which is talking to the Jordanians, right? They are negotiating. And what are they negotiating? And why is the Gaza, strip being wanting to be emptied? Will it go to the Israelis? Are we sure? Are we very sure that, once it is emptied, it will go to the Israelis? I am not. What President Trump's plan, and which comes out very clearly in that talk also, is, but till such time everything is removed from there, till such time, and it's a process which will take about 10 to 15, maybe more years to rebuild Gaza, because of the tunnels, because of the rubble, because of the unexploded explosives, UXOs which are there, objects lying all over. So until unless that area gets cleared, the area is stabilized, no worthwhile construction can take place. Until such time it takes place, the Gazans have to go somewhere. You see, they have to go somewhere. They can't be living there in that rubble. And it was one of the most densely populated areas of the world, in any case. So the rubble has to be cleared, the unexploded ordnance has to be cleared, the tunnels have to be filled up, as he described it as a cheesecake. With the tunnels have made the ground absolutely porous, so no foundation can take place. So I think a very detailed study of that area has been taken. And if that area has to be developed and rehabilitated, it requires people to move out. It's a very ambitious plan, but it is a very logical plan. And it warrants that to happen if it has to stabilize for a longer period. I mean, we're looking long term, huh? We're not looking temporary ceasefires. We're looking 15, 20 years. We're looking beyond that. So that's the way I thought that is a very sensible thing to do. And what President Trump has said, if I recall correctly, he said that we have been doing a lot for the Jordanians and the Egyptians. And it is time that they also listen to us, or they did it for us. So 500,000 is going to go to Egypt in North Sinai. And maybe Jordan will accept quite a few. So that deal will also come through, I guess. So this will happen. And seems logical thing to do. How practical it is, we'll have to watch. Wait and watch.
This is the thing, sir, because such a touchy topic within the region. And how do they manage their populations? Because one of the biggest things is that these guys are radicalized, and whatever said and done, radicalization is increasing in the world. It's not reducing. So
you see,
you've got guys like Turkey to put a spanner in the whole thing. You've got many people who would kind of not like it.
The thing is, you have a nation. Say, let's take Lebanon. You take out Hezbollah out of Lebanon. I'm sure any country would want to, US would want to deal with them. I'm sure the Israelis would love to, have them as friendly neighbors. You take out Hezbollah, I'm sure Israeli-Lebanese relationships can be very good, right? So the moment you take out terrorist elements out of it, I'm not saying radical elements. I'm talking about the terrorist elements. Every sect, everywhere there are radicals. I mean, they believe in the term radical. It is not necessary. A radical may not necessarily be weaponized, or may not have picked up weapons. But a terrorist has picked up weapons to kill somebody. So you take out the destructive elements, and I'm sure peace can prevail. So that is how take out the Hamas, take out the Hezbollah, take out the Houthis, and then you can deal with those countries. What's wrong? And there will be peace. So that is what it is, and that's a statement that they have made, that has been made, that Hamas has to be removed from Gaza. After things have stabilized, they may come back as a political party. Steve Witkoff, his statement is that they can take part in a political process after things have stabilized. That means 15, 20 years. But definitely now, as a terrorist organization, it cannot be supported. It cannot exist in that. They have to be taken off. Ambitious, of course.
Yeah. What do you think happens to Iran, sir?
What happens to Iran? In the end of it, you will have, while two US, another aircraft carrier has been moved into that area. Things are happening. Iran has stood. If you realize Persia, I mean the kingdom, this is the Persian kingdom. So they are a very, very strong nation with a very, very historical, with a strong history behind. To take on Iran is not going to be easy. Iran is not Iraq, right? It's not Afghanistan. And messing up with Iran is going to lead 100% to the next level of, World War III, because it lies in the center, in the middle of the world, right? So you can imagine if you start fighting in Iran, what is going to happen to the sea lanes of communication, all the slots, everything gets blocked. Iranians have their own proxies all over. They will squeeze everybody. So messing around with Iran is not going to be easy. So there's going to be a understanding which will come about between between the Americans as well as the Iranians. The Iranians will reserve the right, will always maintain that they also reserve the right to go nuclear, because nobody can stop any nation. There's no treaty which is existing until unless a formal treaty is signed. But then it is an unequal kind of a treaty. Americans have got nuclear weapons, but I have, but you can't have. That is something which is not going to be acceptable. And so it's okay. We are going to get nuclear, but we will maintain a deterrent. You want to inspect, you come and inspect, but we will maintain a deterrent. And I think that is what is going to ultimately happen. And maybe in the coming years, they will learn to coexist peacefully with the rest of the Middle East countries.
Do you see a regime change, sir?
Gone are the days when regime changes could be engineered, because everybody, has become very conscious of what the games earlier were played. There was lack of social media, there was lack of, communication, internet was not around, so regime changes could take place. Iran, I don't see that happening until unless a revolution is brought about, and which also I don't think it is going to happen. There don't seem to be much reason for such a regime change.
So if Trump can deal with the Ayatollah and all these guys, he'll be okay with just them being there?
Yeah. I mean, it's just that the guy is a strong guy, and Trump is a businessman. If he sees a strong businessman in front of him, what does he do? He strikes a deal. You see, if he finds if a businessman finds a kamzor admi, right, a meek person in front of him, then obviously everybody wants to squeeze maximum out of that guy. But here, when you find a person who is standing his ground and is dealing with you effectively, what do? You come to terms and you negotiate and you talk. So let's see. I kind of feel that's not going to happen. No regime change is going to happen. Trump will. The day is not far. I'm sure, very sure, the two of them would meet also, because Trump believes in one-to-one diplomacy. You just imagine what will happen. What a significant event it would be, where the two of them shake hands. If he could shake hands with the North Korean guy, come on, why can't he do this here? So Trump being Trump, he'll do something very drastic. Yeah.
That's interesting. I mean, that's what I'm kind of looking for, because we have heavy interest in Iran. We don't want it to be destabilized. We don't want destabilization in that region.
We don't want.
Yeah, we don't want any nonsense happening there. जो भी होता है वो organically होना चाहिए, and nothing should go here and there. But of course, last question, sir. I have to ask you this. And Trump is playing games with Pakistan. That's something one can see now. What do you think is the future of this damn country? Because what is happening in Pakistan is bad. This is bad, and it has escalated the minute this guy is come into office and इसने चीजें start करी हैं. That bloody मार कुटाई शुरू हो गई.
Pakistan, you see, unfortunately, uh, is our neighbor. Unfortunate, we are unfortunate neighbors. And Pakistan, uh, whether you look at Baluchis, you know what's happening in Baluchistan, right? The Baluchs are sooner or later going to break away.
Yeah.
We know what's happening in Gilgit-Baltistan, right? We know what is happening in
KPK.
going to be Pakhtunistan, Pakhtunwa, ठीक? And we know what is happening in Sindh.
Yeah.
So as it is, it's a country which is fractured, totally fractured. And over that, the economic conditions have deteriorated to such an extent, it is unimaginable. And the third thing is that as far as the local Pakistani is concerned or the individuals are concerned, they always look and compare themselves with India. Because heart and heart, they also know that we are actually Indians, but we've been divided, and so we are today Pakistanis. Otherwise, we are basically to hum Hindustani hain. So they always look at India and compare the situation on ground with their with India, and in that they find so much of a contrast. I mean, it's not a small contrast. There's such a huge contrast in their living conditions, in the cost of living, in the infrastructure, in their the power sector, the railways. You see, what you see is it's pathetic. The conditions are pathetic. It's just the Pakistani army today, I would say, is holding on and trying to hold on to this country. Is got this country stitched together. It's not the political, government in place which is got the country together. It is the army which is getting it, it's keeping it together, and it's keeping it together for its own gains, because they are the vested party in it. They are the interested party in it because they gain to maximum. Whatever money comes, it goes ultimately it goes onto the pockets of the Pakistani businessmen who are retired Faujis. So पैसा जो है, the game is all about पैसा. They are not interested in the common people. They are not interested in what's happening on ground. They're only interested in getting money from the rest of the world, and not that's it. But how long will they survive? The world is a very open world today. Pakistanis abroad refuse to call themselves Pakistanis. They call themselves Indians. So it's an Indian restaurant owned by a Pakistani. So that kind of a thing has happened. That the Chinese are getting, they're getting brickbats. The Baluchis have already are sorting them down, sorting them out at Gwadar and areas around. So in China, that CPEC is going nowhere. This is going to deteriorate. It's going to implode. Gilgit-Baltistan, the people are so sick and tired. POJK, that is that whatever they call Azad Kashmir. Sooner or later, on their own, they are going to, raise their hand and say we would rather be with India than with Pakistan. So all those things are happening. This country's got no future. They should just raise their hands, throw in the towel, and say, yeah, thank you very much. Come and India, please come in and govern us. That is the kind of a situation they are in. It is just ego play, which is holding them on together, and that radical and extremist element which is trying to promote this. Otherwise, as far as they just throw the towel and say, yeah, please come and govern us. We can't do it ourselves. It's bad. The situation is bad. I feel sad for the common man of Pakistan.
सर कॉमन मैन के पास तो अंडरस्टैंडिंग ही नहीं है हो क्या रहा है, उसको तो अभी छुतरी छुतरी चिरा देते हैं, कभी बोलते हैं रा की साजिश हो गई, कभी अभी देखो हम क्या चैंपियंस लीग लेके आए हैं, कभी
That is a joke. That is a joke.
just keep them busy, that's all.
नहीं नहीं, but
उनको थोड़ा बिजी रखते हैं यार, तुम ओए जरा गुस्सा वुस्सा मत हो यार, तो ठीक है कोई बात नहीं है, ये भाई क्रिकेट देखो क्रिकेट देखो क्रिकेट देखो।
you know the I think it's just that the nuclear card that they keep playing. Otherwise, they are nothing about themselves.
You know,
Yeah.
it's absolutely crazy. Guys, please like the video, subscribe to the channel, and let's get into some questions. And of course, my request to everybody is share this with your friends and families. And if you can, please do contribute towards this channel using the QR code, या फिर PayPal, या फिर super stickers, super chats, or you can become members as well. This is a beautiful comment. I want to take this at the beginning. Nuclear के चक्कर में खुद ही unclear हो चुके हैं.
Actually, that's a fact. That's a nice one, actually.
That's a super
Very nice
one.
one. Thank you.
I love this comment. Nuclear के चक्कर में खुद ही unclear हो चुके हैं. All he's done is just
Yeah, just change the.
you and Erin को उल्टा करा and love it, love it. Vikram ji, thank you so much for your becoming a member of the channel. Mr. Rao, thank you so much. My team playing today could miss Aadi sir. Arey, thank you, right? Thank you very much. Is there a match today? I mean, you know me with cricket. All right, Ashwin ji, 1 second. No clue, sir. I didn't even know when there was a final. Somebody told me a day before. अबे कल final है क्या कर रहा है? अच्छा, I still did my show. देखी जाएगी.
आज IPL शुरू हो गया ना, so I'm watching it here. It's on the screen.
What's the future of people of West Bank?
A very good question. Now, it all depends how they behave themselves. Plain and simple. If as long as there is no element of terrorism in the West Bank, things should be okay. And I think that is the only place where the Palestinians would continue to maintain, while the rest of the Palestinians of the Gaza Strip are displaced and brought back. So let's look at it positively, that at least they have West Bank with them to govern them or to orchestrate the rest of the Palestinians while displacement takes place for a couple of years. Now the bigger game is, or let's take a human tendency. If I am displaced from place A to place B for 15-20 years, obviously I'm not going to come back. If I have got settled down, or until unless there is a very deliberate plan post relocation. Let's say you get relocated to Egypt and you get back and you are brought back to Gaza and you are assured that you will go back. So that's how the settling will take place. But then I don't know how it will work out.
Difficult, sir. Yeah.
But the people of West, they will be the representatives and they'll be the people who will continue to keep the Palestinian flag flying.
Yeah.
That's all I can say.
Ashwin ji, once again, thank you. Shehbaz went begging to Saudi. Any problem for Baloch? That's because he has to roll over some funds, about $1.5 billion. Or something like that.
Saudi Arabia is just, gives them 3 billion, 6 billion, and God knows how many billions have they got out of Saudis. Saudis have no problem with paisa, and they also like it's like dishing out a little dole. Okay, okay, fine. We must give you something.
Future investment for nuclear weapons, है ना?
हाँ, वो तो future नहीं है, already invested है.
उसकी किस्तें दे रहे हैं. जैसे मैं बोला ना, वर्ल्ड बैंक ने पाकिस्तान को 10 years में $20 billion देने का बात करा है. I had said at that time कि this is the advance payment for Balochistan, boss. Don't forget it. ठीक है, ये तुम्हारा
South,
father का advance payment आ गया है.
the South, anyway, this is something the Saudis also playing the card as far as the nuclear thing is concerned, and obviously they taking the help of
The Pakistan.
the Paki. We are aware of that.
Yeah. Krishna ji, thank you so much for gifting 5 memberships. Very kind of you, sir. Batra ji says, shouldn't US leave EU and Zelensky to fend for themselves and wash his hands off and move forward with Russia? Exactly what we were saying. Should he
That's
do
what we do. Yeah, they're going to ultimately do it. I mean, if you know, it's like this in a dispute. If people are not behaving, you say, okay, yeah. I mean, I don't want to use any foul language and say, okay, fine, yeah, you guys deal with it. I'm not. You apparently you don't need me around.
Yeah.
And then you say, then you tell Russia, as a Russia, you sort them out here. I am out of it. I've tried. You know, and Trump is a businessman again.
Yeah.
For him to retract from a situation, he will not hesitate. I mean, there's no ego involved in it. It's a business deal. If you guys are not interested in peace, why should I get involved? I've tried to bring about peace.
True.
If you don't want to mend your ways, if you want to fuel the fire again and continue to support the war, then please go ahead and do it. And that's going to happen.
All right, Rajesh ji, thank you so much. He says Zelensky is calling the shots with NATO and try to do it with Trump just because Europe and Biden assured Zelensky blind support till the last Ukrainian is alive, demanding his pound of flesh.
Yeah, but you know what happened to him when he went to the White House?
Jeez, that
You
was
see, Trump. I mean, he need not have gone, but he thought that he is such a maverick that he will be able to draw out concessions. I think he's getting looked. We always maintain that he's got very big for his boots, and somehow I am quite disappointed with the European leaders and that they've been conned by him.
पता नहीं सर. I think they're all getting money, nothing else. Because सबको जेबों में पैसे जा रहे हैं और कुछ नहीं.
हाँ, सबको पैसा मिल रहा है. ये सारा वहां से घूम फिर के वापस सबके पास जा रहा है.
Nancy Pelosi, वो बोलते ही है ना, Nancy Pelosi's salary is about $178,000 a year, but she's worth some $64 million. How?
Yeah.
So
that's how it is. I think it's all kickbacks which are coming back.
Yeah. All right. Which is more likely, Europe collapsing into a civil war or Europe creating a monster in Russia to avoid civil war?
I don't see Europe getting into a civil war, or as it is, they're creating the image of Russia to be a monster who's going to gobble them if not stopped. So this kind of a narrative is already at work, wherein Russia is the bad guy, and that if you don't stop him now, look, you hear Zelensky, the last conversation that he had with the Prime Minister of UK, Starmer, and he's he's dictating terms. That Russia is lying, Russia is lying, Russia is lying. I mean, they're creating an image of Russia as to be the aggressor, being the so that image is already being built up. But as far as the civil war in Europe, etc., Europe, nothing's going to happen. Europe, the bigger problem in Europe is not because the war. It is more so because of the radicalization or the Islamization which is taking place, and of the immigrants which is taking place. So the whites are not producing babies. Just remember this.
Ashwinji, thank you. He says, minus the USA, how long can the EU sustain the Ukraine war?
No, EU can sustain. Let's not undermine the EU. You know, if you go back to my first podcast, I had said that the Europeans were getting strong, so the Americans came into Europe and created this war. Right? Joe Biden's philosophy. And today, Trump's philosophy is make America stronger. I don't care a shit about what's happening in the rest of the world. But they, let us not undermine the Europeans. Over a period of time, unfortunately, the Europeans have started banking on all the weaponry and the arms and equipment from the Americans. So it was kind of, they were considered one. Let's put it this way. If an American wants to enter, France or UK, he just has to show his driving license. He doesn't need to show his passport. I hope you know that. The driving license is good enough for an American to enter Europe. So what I'm trying to say here is that to undermine Europeans would be wrong. The Europeans can very well defend themselves. After all, the major arms industries are in Europe, and they are the biggest suppliers, whether it is Sweden, whether it is Czech Republic, whether it's France, Germany. So if they get their act together, they are a formidable force, is what I would say.
If they figure out India is their best bet out.
Yeah. That they have done already.
Yeah, and that's what Partha says. I say NATO because all are lining up for Modi's Atmanirbhar Treaty Organization.
Good one, Partha.
No, that's true, sir. If you look at it, all Anglo-Saxon countries are lining up in front of you with a bloody katora. Yeah, Prasad, please, sir, please.
No, the fact is that at the end of it all, if you see the last 3 years of diplomacy, the amount of brickbats we got for not voting against or not favoring Ukraine or not taking sides, today everybody is appreciating that very aspect. The neutrality and the correctness of our our diplomacy, Indian diplomacy, has been recognized, and I think the respect has gone up in the eyes of the world many fold.
Yeah, that's true, sir. Last one, is there any contingency plan for radical refugee crisis in the Indian neighborhood?
A topic in itself. Indian neighborhood is all surrounded. You look at Bangladesh, and you look at what's happening in Myanmar, and you look at what's happening in, Pakistan, and what's the effect of Afghanistan, things like that. So there is, you look at the number of people who have come in illegal, the Rohingya issue, all that. So there is a big concern in our neighborhood, and there is a big concern of the unaccounted people in India, and that's where the NRC comes in, and that's where the CAA comes in, and unfortunately, we people tend to politicize issues. But if you look at the national interest, there has to be a census, there has to be questioning of people whom you do not recognize. People have changed their names, people have got their Aadhaar cards, people have got their, voting cards, adopted different names. But loyalties, of course, would remain to their parent nation or their faith. So that's a different subject and requires more time. Yeah.
Thank you so much, sir. Always a pleasure talking to you, and a very different insight from what is being heard around in mainstream media and, of course, in a lot of other sources as well. Wonderful to actually catch up with you. See you next time, sir.
Thank you, Adi. It was good to be around. Thank you very much.